I love Clip Studio Paint, but sometimes there's just too many things going on and it's too hard to find the tools that I need. So we're going to show you how to take and get rid of the ones you don't need and save your workspace and make it easier for you to get your work done. First off, you have the ability to undock any panel and then change the size of it. So with the tool panel here, it's very long and thin, but we can take this and then we can take it out here. And once I get this to lock here, we can then take this and we can make the size smaller and we can expand this out like this. So now we can take that panel and we can make it much smaller, right? So now also we can take and get rid of any of these panels we're not currently using. Now I use most of the panels over here on the left-hand side, so those I'm not terribly worried about, right? But let's go over here to the right-hand side and see some of the ones that are here. The history panel, I don't often use this panel, right? So let's get rid of that panel. And then the auto actions panel, I don't use that one either. So we're going to go ahead and we can just click here. We can go ahead and get rid of both of these. Now the layers panel, I use that one a lot. But some of these other things up here, like the layer page properties, things like that, I don't really use those that much when I'm doing certain things. So we can go ahead and we'll go ahead and drag each one of those out here. Here's the one for aligning text. Here's the one for searching layers. Here's another one for animation cells. We're definitely not using that one. Here's one for layer properties. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of each one of these. So now we're getting a lot more space here. So now I'd have the ability, if I had multiple layers here, it'd be very easy to see all of my layers. So let's say you have the navigator, but you don't like it on this side and you want to move it over here. So you have the option to bring it over here. Now we can either put it in as a tab or we can put it in line with all the objects. Okay, so I'm going to say I want to put it in line with the objects. Click on this, and that's going to move my navigator over to here. And so now it kind of squished everything down a little bit. Now, me personally, I've decided that I don't really use the brush size anymore because I use a shortcut tool for this where I can just dial my brush size up and down. So there's really no need for me to have a brush selector considering I'm using basically a shortcut pad to dial it up and dial it down as needed. So I can go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, so I've also decided that I like the way this tool panel looks like this. So I'm going to stick this guy back over here, put it in line. And so now I've got my tools up top here and a little small thing here, and then I've got my navigator here, and then down below that I've got my sub tools and tool properties. Now I can click each one of these and I can adjust these and make them larger or smaller. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller here. This will downsize for you. And I think the best way to think about these things is to say that for drawing, for inking, or for coloring, right? Think of each one of them as a separate process and think about the tools you need to do each one. That way we're going to have the maximum amount of space to work. We're not going to have a whole lot of clutter. We're just going to have the tools that we need for each one of those tasks. Now, that might not work for some people, but I think that's going to work really well for me. I also have that option over here. I can kind of squeeze things down here, but it's starting to scroll there, so I'm going to move that back. Now, here's the other fun thing, and I noticed this from somebody else. So next thing is, what if you don't like this interface is gray, right? Because this is pretty much the standard here. And I actually saw someone who had it black, and I was like, oh man, how did they do that? That looks amazing. So that's pretty simple. So you're going to come over here, and you're going to go into File, and then we're going to go down to Preferences, and then we're going to go into Interface, and then right here we have the interface. We can say we want a darker or lighter color. Okay, so if you go with light color, it's going to look like this, and it's going to give you the white background, right? And that's, you know, totally personal preference. You choose what works for you. There's no right or wrong in this. And then we have the dark color, right? Now, but that's still not black. It's still just kind of grayish, right? So how do we get the black background since we only have those two, right? Well, we have this adjust density over here to the right. So we can take and we can drag this way, and that's going to basically make our interface a brighter gray. But if we drag it to the left here, that's going to get us to almost black, right? It's very close. So we can stay with that, and we'll say, okay, we like that. Now, the big thing is here is I talked earlier about how we could take and say, all right, this is going to be my interface for, let's say, drawing, okay? And then I want to be able to easily switch to one for inking or for coloring, things of that nature. So How are we going to do that? We're going to go up here and we're going to go to Window and we're going to go to Workspace and we're going to register the workspace. Now what this is going to do, this is basically going to say, okay, cool, I've documented all of the layout of all of your tools so you can easily come back to them. So we're going to say register workspace, and then we're going to say this is my drawing workspace, and I'm going to go ahead and label it as such, and we'll hit OK. Now when we come back over here into workspace, you see that we have an earlier one that I created, workspace, and we have drawing space. So what does that mean? That means very simply, all you need to do is rinse and repeat, reconfigure everything for your line art or for your color or what other things you do. Like if maybe you do animation, you want to bring the animation timeline in here. Now real quick before we're done, I would say the key question is we closed a lot of windows. So where did all those windows go and how do I get those windows back? So if you go under window, right, you can see all of your various windows right here for each one of the things. You can see your ones for layers, you can see your ones for animation, and you can see your ones for history. And all you need to do is you put a check mark next to those and then those are all going to come back, right? So basically you pick the ones you need. So we'll say we want brush size, and then brush size is going to show up back here. For some reason you get into all this and you're like, man, I just want to go back to what it was. The easy way to do that is come into window, go to workspace, and go to reset the default. What's that going to do? That's going to put us back from where we started. So we hit reset the default. It's going to ask us, are you sure? Hit yes. And that's going to reset all of our windows. So easy way to do this is once you have a workspace, configure it, register your workspace, and then go back to the default, move things around until you have them like you want them, register your workspace, and that way you've got a workflow that works for you with the things that you need to do the job that you're doing currently, and you don't need the rest of those tools all over your screen. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give me a like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.